How do you make stripes? I'll show you! Okay. I'm lighting my torch. Propane first, then oxygen. Adjusting the flame. Sometimes also there's a buildup of carbon in the jets, so I just scrape it out with a steel tool. I begin introducing the glass to the flame, and here I'm going to turn the torch sideways a little so you can see how I'm darting this glass rod in and out of the flame, just at the tip, and I'm trying to heat the glass more gently, a little bit more slowly, because if it heats up too fast it can crack because of thermal shock. As I'm darting this in and out of the flame, I'm also rotating this glass rod, and I'll know that it's hot enough to hold there consistently when I start to see an orange glow in the fire, which you're not going to see on the camera because I've put a didymium lens over the camera, which will enable the flame and the work to be more finely seen. So now it's got the orange glow in the flame, which, yeah, I can kind of see on the computer screen. And so I'm rotating the glass to expose all sides to heat. This is the difference that the didymium lenses make. So this is without the glasses, and that's with the glasses. Really enables me to see a lot more, and it protects a flameworker's eyes. That orange glow is called a sodium flare. And staring at it is definitely not good for your retinas. So I'm going to hold this glass rod a bit more vertically so that the molten glass will roll back on itself and create a larger ball of molten glass, or a gather of glass. I know I said this in the other video, but I'm going to be redundant just in case you didn't see that other video. So, this steel rod is called a mandrel. The size of the mandrel will determine the size of the hole in the bead, because the hole is just the negative space of the mandrel once the mandrel has been removed. This is coated with bead slip or bead separator or kiln wash, a clay solution that insulates the metal from the glass so that the bead can be removed later. Okay, so here I'm making a gather. The size of the gather will determine the size of the bead that I can make, because that's how much molten glass is flowing. I'm almost ready to wind a bead, and when I do that, I'm going to stop rotating this glass rod. I'm going to let the molten glass drip onto the mandrel so that they touch. Then I'm going to spin this, which will wind the molten glass around the steel rod. So I'm heating the mandrel because hot glass doesn't really stick to cold metal. Now I've got my gather. The mandrel is warm, and I'm going to let that drip down, let it touch, and in the flame I am turning the mandrel away from me like this, can you see? And then the glass melted apart from the bead. They've separated, and I have a basic bead, parts of which are clear and becoming opaque as the white glass cools down. It regains its opacity. So that is a basic bead, and that's what I start with. I don't use molds. I don't buy some middle piece and then add stuff to the surface. So I'm just going to change the shape of this a little bit with a marver. And what I just did was I rolled the bead against a flat surface and pressed it down. So I just changed the shape of the bead a bit from something round to something asymmetrically cylindrical. So here is blue glass rod that I'm introducing to the flame gradually by darting it in and out of the heat. And then this is what I'm going to use to wind a stripe, to trail a line around on the bead. This is just a surface decoration, but I'm going to use a lot more molten glass in one motion, so I need to heat more molten glass from the rod that I'm applying to the surface than if I was just applying a dot. Small gather of glass that I've got going. And now my bead has chilled a lot. It's solid. This is the size of the gather. And I'm simply going to touch the gather to the bead at one end and spin the bead. And I'm not at all pressing the colored glass to the bead. And I just wound some of that color around the bead. And I'm going to do it again. Starting from the other end, I just touch very gently, and I hold it just outside of the torch flame and wind on the color. So that is some trailing decoration. It's also possible to be careful and apply it in a consistent and even line, but I really like piling on layers of these trails in different colors and in different translucencies, sometimes completely clear, sometimes completely opaque, then melting them in flat, and then doing geometric patterns carefully over that. I like how much makes the surface really visually interesting. There's a lot to look at, and different layers of depth and several different techniques and aesthetics combined. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to write me. My contact info is probably below the video. If not, you can just find it on my website or in my blog. My website is Jenine.net, spelled JENINE.net, and my blog is JenineBressner.blogspot.com. That's JENINEBRESSNER.blogspot.com. I'm heating this up a lot right now so that I can melt the decoration into the surface somewhat, but not entirely. This way I'm also ensuring that if there are any thin pieces of the trailed decoration, that they're not going to easily break off. So now you can see that it's melted in a little bit. That's enough for me for now. I'm just going to let this cool down, make sure that it's not soft at all. If the glass is still sort of fluid, it could sink into the floor of the kiln and take an impression of that surface like a fingerprint in the glass bead. That might be something that you want, but usually most people want to avoid that effect.